Sup guys, it's Alex here and welcome to another Bracketology update. This one is for January 14th. This is the Friday heading into the weekend. Last night we had a couple of good games, just like Ohio State. They lost to Wisconsin. That was a pretty good game. And then we also had DePaul beating Seton Hall. And the crazy thing about that was in the last minute of the game exactly 27 points were scored in the final minute of the game. It was like 80-something to 70-something. It ended up being like 96 to 92. It was absolutely crazy. I bet if you had bet the under for that game, you were so mad in that last minute. I don't know if I've ever seen 27 points being scored in literally the last minute of a game, but that was just crazy. We are about 2 months out now from Selection Sunday. Man, I am so freaking excited for it. I'll probably end up going to the Indianapolis first and second round games. I might vlog that. We'll end up seeing what happens. But taking a look here at the actual bracketology itself here for January 14th, the bracket watch. Top overall seed remains Baylor. It's still looking like they are the best team in college basketball. They did just lose to Texas Tech, but with the way that Texas Tech is playing, there is no shame in that at all. So no worries on that front. First team out right now is Memphis. I just don't really know what to think about Memphis right now. That team did just lose to UCF, and then UCF, as you can see, is the last team in. That was the tiebreaker between the two teams, so it'll be interesting to see what happens there. UCF with good wins over Memphis and Michigan. So if we scroll down to the bubble, last four byes are Marquette, St. Mary's, Mississippi State, and Florida. Last four in are Minnesota, who have recovered very nicely from losing Marcus Carr last year, who ended up going to Texas. Then we got UAB as a at-large team in the tournament. That is a pretty crazy thing to see. UAB as an at-large team. That team, I want to say, is like 14-1 or something crazy like that. Then we have Wake Forest and UCF. First four out are Memphis, Virginia Tech, TCU, and Texas A&M. And then the next four out are Michigan, St. Bonaventure, Boise State, and Murray State. And also, I do want to mention, Louisville is no longer in the tournament. They're not even on the bubble. They ended up losing at home to NC State by 16 points when they were 8-point favorites. So that just completely dropped them out of the tournament bubble. I say that as a Kentucky fan, I do want to say, but also because they've been in the bracket in these recent bracketology videos. And if you don't see them, that's the reason why. So taking a look here at the movement in the bracket, some big items we got to take care of. Auburn now up to the number 2 overall seed, number 1 over there in the Midwest Regional with a win over Alabama either on Tuesday or Wednesday night. I can't remember which one. That team is looking very good, but as you'll see in my bracketology, I still haven't really gone through it yet. I don't know if I'll have them moving on to like the Final Four championship game or anything like that. We'll kind of see as it ends up coming along where they'll end up going. And then we have Arizona taking the last number 1 overall seed away from UCLA. UCLA got back up there for one bracketology update and now fell back after losing to Oregon last night in overtime, which isn't a terrible loss, but Oregon is just nowhere near the tournament right now. They're a good Pac-12 team, but they're just not, something's not going on. Something is not going well for them this year. But taking a look at the movement itself, you can tell there's a ton we got to get through. BYU down to a 9, Alabama down to a 5, or BYU got destroyed by Gonzaga last night. Alabama lost to Auburn. Louisiana Tech up to a 12. USC down to a 4 after suffering their first loss of the year, but their resume is just pretty thin. That's why they only have one loss, but they're all the way down at a 4 seed. Wisconsin up to a 3 after that win over Ohio State. Davidson down to a 10. LSU up to a 2. Liberty new to the field. Then moving on to the Midwest, we got Loyola Chicago down to an 8. Miami up to a 9. Illinois down to a 5. Oakland back in the field. And we have Belmont down to an 11. Purdue down to a 3. Furman new to the field as a 14. And Iowa up to a 7. And taking a look here at the West Regional, we have Oklahoma falling down to an 8. Minnesota new to the field as the 12 in the playing game there. Kentucky back up to a 4. Ohio State down to a 6. Then we have Seton Hall down to a 7 after they lost to DePaul last night. Forgot to mention Texas Tech up to a 3. They jumped from like a 7 seed in the last bracketology to a 3. That team is putting together some good wins for a good, strong tournament resume. And then UCLA down to a 2. Then the last region over there, we got Arizona, as I mentioned, up to a 1. Crazy, they have a first-year coach, and he is doing this. I think his name, I can't remember what his last name is, but I think his first name is like Tommy or something like that. He is doing a fantastic job with that program. And then we have Tennessee up to a 5. UCF new to the field and playing game there. Michigan State down to a 4 after struggling against Minnesota. Iowa State down to a 6. Vermont new to the field as a 14. West Virginia up to a 7, Marquette up to a 10, and then Princeton down to a 15. So switching over to the actual bracket, where if you guys are new to the Bracketology updates, every single Bracketology update Joe Lunardi does, which it's usually Tuesdays and Fridays for now. Maybe I'll get a little bit more often, like as we get into February, and then obviously almost every day in March. Every single Bracketology that happens, I create this bracket in Excel, and then I go fill it out. You can find it on like vertex42.com. All I got to do is just type in like Excel March Madness bracket. And I give my predictions on how the tournament would play out, who would be my champion just based off of these brackets. And I do it because every single time there's a change in the Bracketology, it could affect who moves on. Like if Kansas or whatever was in Arizona's region, I probably have Kansas beating Arizona, moving on to the Final Four. But since they're in Auburn's region, will I do that? I don't know. We'll kind of see what happens with it. But let's go ahead and get things started off here. Baylor's obviously going to beat the winner of Norfolk and UC Wilmington. Then I'm going to go with Indiana over BYU. Alabama will fall to Louisiana Tech. Alabama is just too hot and cold this year so far. I think that they fall to the 12 seed Louisiana Tech. Then we are going to also have 13 seed New Mexico State upsetting USC. As I mentioned earlier, USC just hasn't beaten a quality team this year. I think they are right for an upset. New Mexico State wins to have a 12 versus 13 second round matchup. Then we'll have Texas moving on past St. Mary's and have some fun in the bracket. Wisconsin moving on past Wagner. Then we are going to have Connecticut beating Davidson along with LSU over Liberty. Then for a spot in the Sweet 16, we got Baylor moving on past Indiana. I think that one's going to be an easy win for Baylor. Then we'll have New Mexico State, the 13 seed, advancing to the Sweet 16 past Louisiana Tech. Then we are going to have Wisconsin over Texas. Wisconsin, if you had asked me like any time in the past 2 months if I thought Texas was going to upset Wisconsin here, I'd say yes. But I have to take this season at face value. Wisconsin putting together some strong wins recently. You got to go with them there. And then LSU will beat Connecticut. Baylor will be able to handle New Mexico State. Their Cinderella run's going to come to an end right there. And then I'm going to go with Wisconsin here over LSU. Wisconsin's just putting together some strong wins over Purdue and then Ohio State. I think they advance to the Elite Eight, but then they will fall to the Bears of Baylor. So then if we scroll down here to the bottom left regional, we'll go ahead and knock this one out. Sometimes I do it last, but we'll go ahead and do it first this time around. Arizona, I think, will be able to beat Weber State. Then we're going to go with North Carolina over Colorado State. Tennessee, I think, can beat the winner of Wake Forest and UCF. Then we got Michigan State over South Dakota State. Iowa State, I think, can beat Florida, along with Villanova over Vermont. Then I'm going to go with an upset pick here with a 10 over 7 over Marquette. I really like Marquette this year, along with Duke over Princeton. Then if I can pick Duke over Princeton, there we go. So then for a spot in the Sweet 16, we are going to have Arizona here moving on past North Carolina. Michigan State advancing on past Tennessee. Then I'm going to go with Iowa State here pulling off the 6 over 3 over Villanova. You guys know I'm a huge fan of Iowa State, or not a fan of Iowa State. I just believe in them a lot this year for some reason. And then we are going to have Duke advancing on past Marquette. Then for a spot in the Elite Eight, I'm going to go with my first number 1 seed falling here and go with Michigan State. I believe a lot in this team, similar to Iowa State, who I have advancing on past Duke. We got the 1 and 2 seeds falling in this regional. We got to have some chaos. We are going to have Michigan State, the 4 seed, facing off against the 6 seed Iowa State. And I am going to go with Michigan State, the 4 seed, advancing here on to the Final Four. So then moving on over to the top right regional, we'll move up there. We got Auburn moving on past the winner of Southern UT Arlington, obviously. Then I think that Loyola Chicago will be able to beat Miami, Florida. Illinois, I think, can beat Iona, along with Houston over Oakland. Then I'm going to go with Providence here, moving on past Belmont, and along with Furman over Creighton. Then I'm also going to go with, if I can pick Purdue over Furman, there we go. And Iowa will be able to beat Creighton. And we're also going to go with Kansas here, advancing past Nichols. Then for a spot in the Sweet 16, we are going to have Auburn advancing on past Loyola Chicago. Illinois, I think, can beat Houston in a 5 over 4 slide upset. Purdue will beat Providence, and then we are also going to go with Kansas moving on past Iowa. So a pretty chalky region so far. Auburn will advance to the Elite Eight past Illinois. I'm giving them their flowers. But then I'm going to go with Purdue here advancing on past Kansas. Those two teams are kind of in flux right now. They were super hot at the beginning of the season, but both teams have kind of suffered losses a little bit recently. I do think Purdue can recover enough, and they have a little bit more NBA talent, I think, personally. It sets up Auburn versus Purdue. But I am going to go with Auburn advancing to the Final Four. My first time having Auburn in there. I just can't ignore that Alabama game. They looked really good. I'm going to go with Auburn advancing to the Final Four for the first time this year in these bracketology updates. So moving on down to the last regional here, we're going to have Gonzaga moving on past Gardner-Webb. San Diego State, I think, can beat Oklahoma. Minnesota have beating UAB and then moving on to beat Xavier as well. Then we're going to have Kentucky beating Ohio. Ohio State, I think, can beat Mississippi State along with Texas Tech over Navy. Then we're going to go with Seton Hall over San Francisco with UCLA over Cal State Fullerton. Then for a spot in the Sweet 16, we are going to have Gonzaga moving on past San Diego State, Kentucky advancing on past Minnesota. Then we are going to have Texas Tech moving on past Ohio State and then UCLA over Seton Hall. Then Gonzaga versus Kentucky for a spot in the Elite Eight. I'm going to go with the 4-seed Kentucky Wildcats. I'm going to go with the boys with the National Player of the Year contender, if not the favorite as of right now. Oscar Tshiebwe averaging like 15 and 15 a game. Absolutely crazy. I got them pulling off the upset over the number 1 seed right there. Then we're going to have Texas Tech versus UCLA. You got to go with Texas Tech with the hot run they're on. UCLA just lost to Oregon, which sets up Kentucky versus Texas Tech, a 4 versus 3 in the Elite Eight. And as much as I want to pick my Kentucky Wildcats to advance, you got to go with the hot hand of Texas Tech. So we're going to have Baylor versus Michigan State here in the Final Four. I am going to go with Baylor moving on to the national championship game where they will face Texas Tech, continuing their hot run, playing hard for their first-year head coach, who I can't think of off the top of my head because Chris Beard went over to Texas, which sets up an all Big 12 final of Baylor versus Texas Tech, the two teams that just played this week and Texas Tech won. But I do think that Baylor is the better team. I am going to go with Baylor winning it all as of right now. So there we have it. Those are my predictions for the NCAA tournament if it were to happen today based off this bracketology. Thank you guys for watching. I really hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you think of my predictions and let me know your own predictions in the comment section below. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you all later.